Good afternoon. I am delighted to again welcome Margy and Jack Flynn. And Margy and Jack Flynn are constitutionalists who are working to help people understand not only the Constitution, but the actual birthrights of our sovereign rights and how it is that the Constitution helps to uphold our sovereign rights, the rights that we have to life, liberty, and property, our very rights to be a living man and woman who are not controlled by anyone other than their own self and their own relationship to their divine creator. And I welcome you and I thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Hello, Kathleen. Always nice to be with you.
Absolutely.
It's great. Well, today we are going to talk about taking action. And what we are very well aware of is that we are past the hour. It is time now that each and every man and woman and child who understands how to take action against this tyranny, this Marxist, Bolshevik, communist overthrow, not only of the United States, but of the world. And so we're going to dive in and Jack, if maybe you could start and give us maybe a little bit of background about why this is important and where to go from there.
Fine. First of all, Margy and I are bottom line people, as I've mentioned many, many times before. If we take a look at the bottom line position that actually exists and can be measured, because everything can be measured, we will understand, or should be able to understand, through just logical reasoning, rationality, and common sense, that America is now and has been a communist nation for a very, very long time. Okay, right across the board. All of your governments in this country, federal, state, and local, all of them, do not support and uphold the Constitution at all, but each and every one of them uphold, support, and enforce the doctrine of communism and the principles contained in the Communist Manifesto upon the people. You can't see that. You're not looking. And if you're not looking, you're not aware. And if you're not aware, you're not helping the country. So start looking and start researching and start being aware of the existing realities that control you, your family, and this whole nation. All of these governments in this country, and I'm saying all, federal, state, and local, okay, right down to your community, advocate communist policies upon the people. And if you don't understand that, like I said before, you're not looking. Look at what's going on with this so-called pandemic, okay? Take a look at the reality of the pandemic and understand that the disease that is supposed to exist, that as far as we're concerned, does not exist. Because what they claim is the disease is simply the flu. The FDA has said this, the WHO has said this, okay? And the flu, or the disease they're talking about, has a cure rate of over 99.74%. 99.74%. With a cure rate like that, why do you need to do anything to stop that disease? Because the treatment is worse than the disease itself. Okay, this has never happened before in the history of the world. And it's not only America, it's the entire world. So you must understand through logic, rationality, reasoning ability, and common sense that this has nothing to do with what they're claiming it is, but it has everything to do with enforcing communist policies upon you. And all the governments in this nation, federal, state, and local, are in lockstep with each other. And like I say, if you don't know that, you're not looking. If you're looking, you know what we're talking about. Go
Now,
right ahead.
Jack, could I ask you, could you describe communism? Because most people, because we have been taught that we live in the freest country in the entire world, and it's a democracy, or some people understand has been a republic in the past. But what do people look for? What is communism? And so when you refer to that, what are some of the markers for people to be able to say, oh, yes, I recognize that. Oh, yes. Could you give a list, please?
Yes, first of all, to give a little background on that. This is a constitutional republic. It was formed as a constitutional republic. It's not a democracy. It's never been a democracy. But the constitutional republic has never been upheld by the people and by the government itself. Okay, the government calls it a democracy. The people call it a democracy. The founders hated democracies. They loathed democracies. That's why they formed the constitutional republic, which is a rule of law and not a rule of man. However, no government in this country, as I said before, upholds the Constitution, rights guaranteed therein and due process of law. So when the government does not uphold the Constitution, nor the rights guaranteed to the people, they're not abiding by the rule of law, they're abiding by the rule of man, okay? Now, when you take a look at communism, what is communism? Communism is a force that's been with us for a very long time. Communism infiltrated America a very long time ago. It infiltrated America right in the very beginning. Communism was present in the founding of this nation. It was present in the money that helped found this nation. It was present in the politics. It was present within some of the founding fathers. So it's been with us for a very long time. And what is communism? Communism is simply an arm of the accountants, okay? And it has been an arm of the accountants for a very, very long time. Communists are their boots on the ground to implement their policies. And what are their policies? Their policies are to destroy all governments, destroy all law, as they have destroyed the Constitution here in the United States of America, as they have destroyed the law in the United States of America, and they've made it a dictatorial, tyrannical rule. Well, that's exactly what communism is, a dictatorial, tyrannical rule for the benefit of the accountants, because the accountants are the new world order who want everyone and everything in this world under their control, under their supervision, and under their direction. No choice. Our Constitution guaranteed us free choice. Do you see free choice in America today? Think about it. Do you see free choice in the rest of the world today? Think about it. What about free speech? Do we have free speech in America anymore? Not really. Do we have free speech in Germany, Italy, other places? Ireland, one of the most egalitarian nations on the face of the earth. Do we see free speech in Ireland? Do we see it in Israel? No, we don't. So what's going on here? It's very simple. Power rules. Power has always ruled, because power has the might, it has the arms, it has the money, it has the bribery ability, it has the domineering ability. And that power is contained within the accountants, whose army are the communists throughout this world, everywhere. And the communists throughout this world are destroying and have destroyed many governments that were somewhat free and are communists right now, and are destroying other governments to make them communist governments. That's the idea. That's the new world order. And I'm sure Margie has some comments.
Yes, I do have some comments. If I were to define communism, I'd say a lot of what Jack has put forth just now I'd also use certain adjectives which come to mind, like pernicious, relentless, ruthless, persecuted, stifling, because communism is a pervasive and a very dark force. It doesn't allow for any other views other than what the communists want to dictate as the way things are. And anybody who has ever lived in a communist regime would certainly second that. There is no choice. In order for communism to thrive, there cannot be a healthy, thriving middle class people, a class who can be relatively independent, who can afford to feed their family, can buy an automobile, can travel, take vacations, go out to eat at a restaurant, pick and choose where they want to do their activities, what they want to spend, and so forth. In order to have a communist regime take force, you have to basically take away the entire middle class structure.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Take away what?
The entire middle class structure. You have to make sure that the average guy doesn't have the independence that most middle class people have enjoyed up until recently. You have to make sure that they are dependent upon some other higher authority for their ability to come and go, buy goods and services, etc. And that's what all of this has been about with this recent year or two of nonsense with the disease that isn't a disease. That's what this is all about. It was about a training camp, so to speak, to get the people used to being dictated to by a central authority. And that central authority happens to be a private agency that has absolutely no real governmental authority in this country, but has had its way with the people because it's being promoted and advanced by all of the communists who have infiltrated our governments at every level. And as Jack mentioned earlier, that's at the federal level, it's at the state level, it's at the county level, and it's at the local level. And even though most Americans don't recognize it because, you know, they know the town clerk or the guy that runs the police station or the fellow that's the head of the city council, they don't realize it because they're not walking around with signs on their arms that say they're communists. They don't recognize it because they don't understand the steps of communism and how incremental they are and insidious they are because they insinuate themselves into everything. And before you know it, you wake up one day and they're in control of everything and you don't know what happened. And that's what's happened in America. For decades and decades, this communist infiltration has been taking place. And if you look at the institutions that run this country, virtually every one of them has been infiltrated by and is now controlled by a communist. He may not wear the label, but what he does and says and implements and orders and secures is pure communism. And people say, well, you know, they're just a bunch of rabbles, and you know, they have like a revolution every now and then in some banana republic, but that has nothing to do with America. Oh, yes, it does. That's one face of communism. There are many. And what people really don't understand is that they get their longevity and they get their permeability because they have deep pockets, endlessly deep pockets, because they're funded by big head honchos in the accounting group. And because of that, they never run out of funds to continue with their operations. Some of them are in the face, some of them are hidden quietly underground behind the scenes, but they're always doing it and they're very patient. They have long range 100-year plans. So everything that's happening in America right now, and actually throughout the rest of this planet, has been planned a very long time and has been very carefully and meticulously put into place. What they don't count on in terms of being the controllers is the people ever waking up to this and seeing it, which is why we have been so absolutely rabid about trying to awaken the American people and inserting in them a level of independence and critical thinking that's necessary for them to recognize and connect the dots, because they're far-flung and they come into play under different names and faces and ideologies and what have you. So if you don't understand what's really going on behind the whole scenario, you won't realize that every one of those outside parts are all an integral part of the big communist puzzle. And that's how they've been so successful. That's how they've managed to take over so easily, because they don't always do it by force. They do it every now and then to make themselves look like the powerhouses that they want to be. But their best and easiest way is insinuating themselves, because they've done it in America. And unfortunately, since Americans have been very lazy about paying attention to government, and there are many reasons for that I won't go into, but the reasons all boil down to one thing. Most Americans don't know how their government is supposed to work. They don't understand that the Constitution for the United States of America, circa 1787, as amended in 1791 with the Bill of Rights, is the absolute bedrock, the foundation, and the entire blueprint that all of the architecture of our nation is in that simple document. It's written in English, says what it means what it says. It doesn't need to be interpreted by anybody in a black robe. We are intelligent enough as a species, if we want to be, to understand and comprehend the words in the Constitution and what they mean. And if we were to do that, we'd understand that the government that's operating in our country now at every level is not a constitutionally ordained government, which means it's illegitimate, it's de facto, it is unlawful, thus it is criminal. And we have continued to allow these criminals to run the show for a long time because we've been apathetic, we've been ignorant, we've been lazy, in some cases downright stupid. But we have to wake up, we have to actually grow up now. We can't play Peter Pan and Wendy and Tinkerbell anymore. We have to get past it. And we have to look at how we have deceived ourselves, how we have conditioned ourselves by watching the media 24/7. One of the worst things that ever happened to this country was when 24-hour news came into play. And that's CNN, we call it Communist News Network, okay? Because that's what it is. And that was one of the key factors in really shoving it to the people through the media. People became addicted to the news. I know people who would every 15 minutes tune into the next broadcast. And I say, what are you watching that for? It's the same claptrap that was on 15 minutes ago. Oh, no, there might be something new. I said, and what are you going to do with that? Is that going to help you? Is it going to make your day any better? Well, but I want to be informed. I said, well, if you want to be informed, how about doing your own research? Because they're not telling you the truth. And I was looked at as, somebody said to me, what are you, a communist? I said, what? Well, you're so anti-American. I said, whoa, wait a minute. No, I am as pro-American as you can get, the real America. But I'm not going to put up with this phony communist takeover of America and pretend that it's all good and fine, because it's not. And if we don't wake up as a people, if we don't stop accepting this garbage as truth and find a way to get out of the morass and open our eyes and ears, we are going to be a full-blown communist country. People laughed, people got angry. They accused us of being anti-American, communists, sensationalists, negative, anything. And the worst offenders of the accusations were not the real average everyday American. The worst offenders were the people who think they're educated. We call them educated, the ones with 5 and 6 degrees after their name, and the ones who think that they know better because they make a very good living and they drive a Mercedes, or they might be professionals who are successful and have some kind of advanced career, or they're publicly known, etc. All of these people prove themselves to be clueless. And now we're living in a country that is full-blown, overtly becoming communist. And these same people are still walking around, shaking their heads and saying, no, this isn't communism. No, it's fascism. Oh no, it's colonialism. Well, it's racism. This is the tactic that communism uses: divide and conquer. That's been going on forever. You go back through history, go back to the Romans. They did it masterfully, divide and conquer. In our country, there are so many divisions right now that the people are fractured and splintered. So they cannot see themselves as a unified, cohesive force to stand up against the single enemy that's behind the screen, pulling all the buttons and levers, and that is communism. So if the American people really want to help themselves out of this particular recent mess and out of all the other messes that have been perpetrated on them over the decades, the first thing they have to do is know their enemy. And that enemy is communism.
and who is perpetuating right now endlessly communism upon the American people, but all of the American governments,
Everyone,
all of the American institutions, all of the American corporations, virtually all of the American media, okay, the school systems, perpetrating communism upon the people. And like I said, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, but the government does not uphold the Constitution. The government opposes the Constitution, okay, and every tenet within the Constitution. So when people try to obtain their rights through government, government will not grant those rights to the people because the people surrendered to government a long time ago, okay? The country has been taken over for a very, very long time. The people never saw it then. They don't see it now. Even with the massive problems we have due to this tyrannical pandemic, the people still don't see it. And the small majority, a small minority, I should say, I wish it were a majority.
me too.
The small minority of the people who actually see it, who actually are awake and aware, are not doing anything effective to stop it. So what is the sense of being aware and awake and knowledgeable of a problem if one does nothing to solve that problem? And that's exactly what's happening in this nation. The vast majority is simply accepting the communist dictates as if they're normal, as they always have, okay? And the small minority that is aware and awake is doing nothing effective to stop it. And if anyone out there knows anyone or any group or any organization that is taking any effective, and I go with the word effective because it means a lot, is taking any effective action to stop this communist tyranny, let us know. We don't know of any, none, zero. We know of people who are talking about it. Sure, a lot of people are talking about it, but very few are taking any lawful effective action to stop it. And unless your action is effective, it's meaningless. You know, you could be playing for the Bucks, the world champions from last year. Okay, you could be playing for the Bucks, and you could have a great championship team, and you're playing in another Super Bowl. But unless you're effective with your plays, both offense and defense, you're going to lose the game. That's the bottom line. Are you effective with what you're doing, or are you not effective? We don't see any effectiveness at all. The American people have to realize that the nation has been captured, to use a phrase by Cliff Hart. It's been captured, okay? We say taken over. We say industrialized within the corporate communist cartel. That's basically what has happened to this nation. So it's too late to prevent communism from taking over the nation. It already has.
Well, and Jack, we can see that with all these cargo ships that are out in the bays, and they're the people that are on them are they're putting signs out saying we're running out of food. They've been stopped in those harbors from bringing their cargo on shore, and the grocery shelves and the gas station they're becoming deplete of their resources for the American people. So we all are seeing the impact of this communist takeover. So folks, just think about that. You know, are you able to get the amount of fuel that you need for a price that hasn't risen over 30% in the last few months? And how about your grocery store shelves? You know, are you able to buy your food that you normally can to feed your family, but within your own income level? You know, this is this communist takeover. And you know, we were talking before, but if we look at how embargoes have been used against nations historically, we see how effective it is, and the intended starvation and death that we have seen of the British against the Germans between World War I and World War II. And but other countries we've seen embargoes. Look at Cuba.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, we see the impact of embargoes, and now we are the ones.
That's right. We are the ones who are suffering for many, many reasons. And this isn't going to stop unless the people put a stop to it. And it's not just the embargoes. They're attacking our food at every level. I'm sure you're aware that some of the very rich people on the planet have bought up enormous amounts of farmland. And also people from foreign nations such as China have bought enormous amounts of farmland. And there's many reasons for that, some of which is to feed the Chinese people. A lot of it has to do with changing the way planet Earth functions. And recently we received some information about a plan to literally terraform the planet so that it will no longer be fit for habitation of plants, birds, animals, or human beings. There is literally a mechanized way for them to take life force out of the air so that the animals and the plants and the humans won't get the nutrition that they need from sunlight and all of the rest of it. This is a very dark and very devious thing. And I want people to understand that because it's not just the megalomaniacs on this planet who are doing this. This is being directed by an arch enemy of epic proportions, one that anybody could recognize if they thought about it. And you don't have to be a person of religion or faith to understand that there is a dark force and that the dark force has been basically controlling planet Earth for an awful long time, probably millennia. If you look at the history of Earth and the darkness that has plagued us over and over again, there is a dark hand that has orchestrated this. And I don't think that people realize that the way that dark hand is going to be stopped is by their not allowing this dark hand to rule them any longer. And someone just said recently, some congressman who used to be a sheriff, that the American people would rather die on their feet than live on their knees. And I think we have to take that sentiment and that thought and really chew it a little bit, because what good is it to survive and live in a country where there is no choice, there is no freedom, there is really no joy. And at some point, people will be hooked up to the supercomputer because they'll be part of the singularity, which Ray Kurzweil has been talking about for a very long time. And they keep pushing that date forward because they want to have everybody incorporated into this monstrosity. We as human beings will not be human beings if we continue. And this is also connected to the sickness epidemic and the treatments that they're advocating and enforcing for this epidemic. So it's a much bigger picture than just a few people in red jackets with a hammer and sickle on their arm. It's much bigger than that, deeper, wider, broader. It goes beyond what most people can even think about. It's awful, it's ugly, but it's a reality. And if we don't have the stomach to confront this reality and understand how it has put us in its grip, we won't have the ability to escape the grip. And this is critical for every American, for every human to think about. We have to be our own saviors. Everyone's looking for somebody to come down the Deus Ex Machina out of the sky, and the hero swoops in, riding on a white horse with a white hat, and he waves his magic sword or his wand or whatever the mechanism is, and everything's fine. And the people don't have to do anything. Well, folks, that's a lie. Never happened, never will happen. The only way that people are going to get out of this mess is for the people to extricate themselves. And that's the last thing that communism wants. They want you to be hopeless and helpless and dependent on them. They don't want you to have a source of jobs, so you have no funds to be independent. They don't want you to have any food. They want it to be a battle. They want you to be fighting with your neighbor for the last scraps on the grocery store shelves. That's what they want. They want to divide us so that they can fully conquer us and make us perpetual slaves. And I don't know about you guys, but that doesn't work for me.
I think we're there. I think we're there from your description.
We're right. We're hovering. We're right here. We're coming in for a landing, you know. And if we don't want to be in that place, then we, the people, have to do something individually and collectively. And it's not hopeless. It's only hopeless when you give up. And Jack and I have said forever, quitting is not an option.
I'm here. So that's a great send off. So let's take a look at some actual action plans. Jack,
Well,
maybe
let's-
you could walk us through some of what we
Let's-
can do
Let's go back to the embargo, okay?
to the embargo.
To the embargo.
Yes,
The
please.
embargo is only one problem. There are thousands and thousands of other problems. The embargo is only one, okay?
Yes.
The question is, why do we have an embargo? Okay? Who controls the port or the ports? Who controls the shipping? Who controls the cargo? And who controls the governmental policies that either permit ships to unload or require them to remain at sea? Okay? Well, obviously, the government of the United States of America is a corporation. It is not a government. It pretends to be a government, but it's not a government. It hasn't been a lawful government since the Civil War. And it definitely has not been confirmed as a lawful government since the Corporation Act of 1871. Okay? It's a corporation. All governments are corporations. The city you live in, the town you live in, the county you live in, all corporations. Corporations are in business for private enterprise and for profit. They're profit-making corporations. So the government of the United States is a corporation, okay? It's in business for itself, and it's controlled by communism. Well, what does communism do? It disrupts everything possible you can think of. Every possible thing you can mention is stopped by communism. It's happened in every communist nation on the face of the earth, every single one, orchestrated by the United States of America. Now, you may not believe that, but I'll get into some situations a little later and explain how that happened. Okay, so if we want a supply chain, if we want goods and products delivered to ports and then transported to various warehouses and then to retail operations, then that would be the objective of the powers that be and would be the objective of the owners of the ports. Well, who owns the ports in California?
I think the accountants own the ports in California.
Communist China owns the ports in California, most of them. Communist China. Communist China owns a lot of ports around the country. They were sold by our government to Communist China some time ago. Now, that may not be well known to a lot of people, but that's the bottom line. If you care to get into it, you can look at it. So here, the communists own the ports and the ships are at sea, okay? Well, a lot of those ships at sea are communist ships, aren't they, from China, okay? Why is China doing this? And why is our government cooperating with the owners of the port to do this, to cause disruption? And what is the government doing about it? Causing the disruption. That's the objective of communism, and that's the objective of this government, to cause disruption, to cause problems for the people. We have a situation going on right now with Canada that was delivering gas and oil to the Midwest, the upper Midwest, okay? Biden just came out with an edict, another so-called unconstitutional position to stop that pipeline. Well, why is he going to stop that pipeline or try to stop that pipeline? And why are the courts going to uphold his unconstitutional edict? Because he's either a communist or controlled by communism himself, okay? With a communist policy to cause as much disruption as possible in the United States of America. That's another position. Then we can go to the food positions. We can go to the water positions. We can go to the air positions. We can go to the heart positions. We can go to thousands and thousands of other disruptive positions that the government is perpetrating upon the people of the United States of America because the government of America is a communist organization that is causing disruption everywhere it can. It's doing nothing to stop it. It's doing everything to
Cause it.
foster it, to cause it, to perpetuate it, to starve the people out. And what are the people doing about it? Zero. Absolutely zero. The government is doing it and the people are doing zero to stop it.
Well,
Now,
don't you
in
think that everyone who has funds, who has wealth, figures that it's not going to happen to them? But if we look at who is running communism, we know historically that it is the central bankers. In this country, the Federal Reserve is run and controlled by the money changers, by
Yes.
the accountants,
Yes.
and everywhere across the world, it is the accountants who's running all these governments. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yes.
And so it's the money that is controlling all of this winding down of our own freedoms and our own access by a juggernaut that is stopping the flow of commerce and stopping the flow of freedom. And it's by those who have the money, who are in the positions of power. And so it's the accountants that are at the head of the governments in Britain and Germany and China and the United States. It's the same rowdy crowd. Is that fair to say?
Yes, it
Yes.
is fair to say it. And one has to look at the objective and the goal. What's the agenda? Remember I said earlier that they have to decimate the middle class and make sure that people don't have the freedom and independence that they would have if they have funds and free choice. Well, when all of those things are taken away at the end of the day, then the people are dependent on someone else to help them. We go back to the savior mentality. Please help me. So when a situation like this develops, we talked about the Hegelian dialectic, problem, reaction, solution. They're creating the problems. They're getting a reaction. Oh, please give us a solution. Well, we'll have to become a little bit more dictatorial and tell these ports that they have to open and these regulations have to be set aside for now so that we can get you the goods and the diapers for your babies and so forth and so on. And a little bit more of the freedom of choice taken away and a lot more control is imposed so that people are absolutely dependent upon the central figure, okay, the government, the head of the snake, or so they think. This is their objective. It's always to disrupt and to injure, to induce fear. That's the biggest weapon is fear. What if I can't feed my kids? What if I can't feed my cats and dogs?
And one of the biggest weapons is economic violence.
And that's exactly what
And
this is,
that's going on right now.
right
Yes.
in front of our noses.
Now, what are the people doing about it? I'll answer my own question. The people are doing nothing about it. Zero. Okay. Why are the people doing nothing about it? Is a good American going to do something about this or not? Apparently, there aren't many good Americans because no one is doing a damn thing about it, okay? Effectively. People are talking about it. People are concerned about it. People are frustrated about it. People are raising hell because of this situation. But what are they doing effectively to stop it?
So
Again,
tell us,
the answer
what
is nothing.
can we do?
Fir-
That's what
first-
we need to hear from the two of you.
First of all, we have to recognize the fact that our government is controlled lock, stock, and barrel by communism. Number one. Number two, that our government is a treasonous government, imposter government, fraudulent government, opposed to the Constitution, opposed to the rights of the people, opposed to America herself. And number three, that our government is pure evil, satanic, and tyrannical. They have to recognize that fact. If they don't recognize that fact, they're not living in the real world, okay? So if the people can recognize that, then the people can take action against that government lawfully, okay, in great numbers to remove that government from power, state by state, office by office, person by person, okay? They can do that, but they're not doing a damn thing, nothing.
They've exercised nothing.
The government the people have to realize that the courts are controlled, captured, and in the pockets of communism, under the control of communism. There's no freedom in the courts anymore.
So in
Now,
other words, our judges are acting administrators.
Mhm.
Lawyers have taken an oath to the bar to uphold their oath to the bar that supports the acting judicial system there. And so the actual pretense that they actually took an oath to uphold the law of the land, the supreme law of the land, the Constitution, is a total charade. And until we call them out on that, that lie stands. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
And
That's absolutely
many,
correct.
many of these lawyers and judges and other people, businessmen, what have you, people of wealth, the so-called elite, the 1% of the 1%, many of them belong to secret societies. And in many of these secret societies, they take an oath that supersedes and basically eliminates all their other oaths. It exonerates them from any obligations from their prior oaths. And in their minds, hey, no big deal, we're just doing our thing. We've got a pass here. You guys can think whatever you want. We'll give you lip service every now and then if you challenge us, but it doesn't mean a damn thing to us because we want power, we want control. We want to fill our pockets and we want to empty yours. That's really it in a nutshell. But the American people have been gullible and naive and ignorant and apathetic so long, they have not recognized the depth of the perfidy that's been perpetrated against them, and they have to wake up.
All right, so the question is, what can the people do about it?
What
First
can
of
we do?
all,
First thing is wake
First
up.
of all, the people have to recognize the truths that I just mentioned previously. And the people have to recognize that all governments in this country,
Corporation.
which is also a corporation, okay, are evil, satanic, unconstitutional, malevolent, trying to kill the people. They've actually just declared war upon the people. I mean, anytime a government is trying to wipe out its own population, there's something wrong with that government. But the people still don't recognize this. So I'm saying the only way the people can do this is, number one, to recognize all of these truths, all of these realities, see what is really going on, see who the perpetrators are, and then take lawful effective action against those perpetrators. They can't depend upon the courts because the courts are part of the system, okay? So what they have to do is gather together in large groups, and I mean large groups, tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people, and start taking individual actions by and through your constitutional right to redress your grievances to government through affidavits based in the power and the authority of the Constitution, okay? The entire Congress can be written affidavits by massive amounts of American people. And as long as those affidavits are based on truth, fact, law, and evidence, and spell out the unconstitutional actions committed by government and this particular senator or this particular representative, okay? Those affidavits cannot be rebutted by the recipient because the recipient cannot rebut the affidavit by means of his own sworn and notarized affidavit based in truth, fact, law, and evidence, okay? Admissions go a long way in anything, in any court system, in any governmental system. When your opponent admits to your claims and charges against him, you have your opponent exactly where you want him. He's supporting your position. This is what we need to do. And when these representatives and senators and so-called experts will not rebut anything, then we, the people, can lawfully remove them from office because the Constitution is the supreme law of the land and not the law of man. These idiots these communists, these usurpers, these traitors are operating unconstitutionally by the law of man and not the law of the land. So we use the law of the land against them in a peaceful way to remove them, okay? And we can do this, but the American people have done nothing like this. Now, no, wait a minute. Let me give you an example. One of our friends and one of our students and one of our most active followers has been operating in California for a long time, for the past year or so. And she and her people in California have taught our constitutional methods all over California. And they've got well over 40,000 affidavits that have been written to the communists in government all over California. There have been some resignations, there have been some firings, there have been some recalls, there's been some action there, okay? And that's just one small example of what the people can do. But if the people don't take any action lawfully and constitutionally, the people are supporting the program, meaning the governmental program. And governments.
So let me
want
interrupt you
people
for a
to take no
second.
action.
Let me interrupt you for one
Go ahead.
second. So you, Margy, and you have written an affidavit that is extremely powerful. So people, as you listen to Jack and Margy speak, you can contact them for this affidavit and fill out the specific blanks in that affidavit and file them with your local judicial system, with your county commissioners, with your local municipality elected officials. So Jack, could you give your contact information so that people can contact you for a copy of this affidavit and work
Yes,
with you on that?
We've got several different affidavits for several different purposes, okay? But let me give you the contact information. We are Jack and Margy Flynn, and our website is citizensoftheamericanconstitution.net. That's citizensoftheamericanconstitution.net. The best email to reach us is takebackourrights@yahoo.com. That's takebackourrights@yahoo.com. Our phone number, we live in Arkansas, but we have a main phone number. That is 207-404-9093. 207-404-9093. Now, we have different affidavits for different purposes, okay? The standard affidavit, and we have templates of all this that we can send out to anyone who wants. The standard affidavit is to be written to your government official or officials, okay? And you make your charges and claims against these officials based upon their unconstitutional actions that have harmed you. And you support your actions by truth, fact, law, and evidence. As long as you're based in truth, fact, law, and evidence, and citing unconstitutional actions committed by these enemies serving in office, you're in a very solid lawful position. Now, since you're so based, and since an affidavit stands as truth before the court, unless it's been rebutted by a rebuttal affidavit supported by truth, fact, law, and evidence, there's no opposition to your affidavit. It does not exist, okay? So your affidavit stands as fact and truth before the court because the recipient has admitted to and agreed with all the charges and claims that you've made in your affidavit. Now, this is a very important consideration. People are not following through. Now, the people in California have written over 40,000 affidavits, which is wonderful. As I say, certain things have happened there. For instance, in Ventura County some time ago, a lot of cases that were filed against businesses were dropped because the system couldn't rebut the affidavit. They couldn't go against the affidavit. The affidavit is based in fact, truth, law, and evidence, and the power and the authority of the Constitution. The system in Ventura County said we can't go against this affidavit, so we're dropping these charges. Charges against a church were dropped. other people who had charges against them all of a sudden found out that the charges evaporate. Now that's in one small area. Throughout California, there have been other situations that have taken place. But the people have to follow through with the affidavit. You still write the affidavit and walk away. You have to follow through, okay? The people who follow through can be very effective and have been very effective. Step 2 of the affidavit is a notification by affidavit to all of the supervisory and personnel and oversight personnel of the person to whom you wrote the affidavit in the first place. The original recipient did not rebut the affidavit. You're sending affidavits to the personnel who supervise this guy or this gal, and you attach an affidavit a copy of the affidavit you sent to the original recipient. Well, again, if your affidavits are based in truth, fact, law, and evidence, the oversight personnel are not going to rebut anything. Step number 3 is you notify all law enforcement personnel in that county and that state by what we call an affidavit of complaint, citing all of the unconstitutional actions that were committed against you by this initial recipient and the failure to uphold the Constitution by the supervisory and oversight personnel, okay? It's called an affidavit of complaint. None of these law enforcement personnel, and we start with a county sheriff, the county DA, the county prosecutor, if there is one, the state attorney general, and the US attorney in your state, okay? They're all notified. None of these people will take any action. Why? Because they're all in lockstep with the corporate communist government, and they are not going to take any action against each other at all, period. Case closed. It won't happen. So step 4 is to send all of these law enforcement personnel their own affidavits citing how they have violated the Constitution, violated their oath, and have taken no lawful effective action against those who have committed egregious constitutional violations that have harmed the people. They're not going to respond. The next step is you take the action to court for the reason that there is no legitimate, lawful, constitutional government existent in your state by which you can receive remedy for egregious constitutional violations committed by government officers pursuant to their oaths. You take that to court, okay? Now, the courts are corrupt, the government is corrupt. You have to understand that. The court is going to try to get rid of your case as much as possible, but prior to that, you have to know your case. You have to know how to present a case. You have to know how the courts work, and you have to use our methods or something very similar to our methods to be able to win your case in court. Because by and through our methods, we hold the judge and the prosecuting attorney or the corporate attorney, whoever he is, to the strict constitutional mandates imposed upon them by and through their oaths. And we do it by and through their admissions on the public record. No one else does this in the country except us. No one, zero. And we have people won thousands of cases over the years by using these methods, okay? Based on the power and the authority of the Constitution. Now, when you hold the judge and the prosecuting attorney or the defending attorney to their oaths by their own admissions made on the public record before that court, you've essentially won your case if your case has lawful merit based on the power and the authority of the constitutions. All right, now we're not making a case to the judge. We don't trust the judge. We're making our case to the jury. The jury is stupid. The jury is composed of average Americans. The jury can be tooled around by government any way the government wants to tool around the jury. This is just a fact of life. However, when the jury is explained its power and its authority under the Constitution as an independent organization away from government that cannot be bound by government to do anything unless the jury agrees with it, then the jury can understand that here are some people called the plaintiffs who brought actions against these unjust, evil, satanic, communist, domestic enemies serving in office, and understand how these domestic enemies have ruined the Constitution and ruined the American people, ruined the rights of the American people, and allowed communism and unconstitutional actions to rule. That jury, if the case is presented correctly, is going to find with the plaintiffs and against the system. Now, before you get into that, the judge has a problem here. The judge is going to be walking a tightrope. The judge is a corrupt, evil piece of crap. That's the bottom line. I don't care if his name is Saltonstall. I don't care if his name is Weinberg. It doesn't matter what his name is. He's a corrupt, evil piece of crap because he's serving in that office and using corruption to maintain that office and stay in that office. You must understand that. So the judge is going to try to get rid of the case. All right. Anytime a case is filed, there's an initial hearing to determine whether the case has merit and whether the case can go forward or not. The judge wants to dismiss the case. I can guarantee you that. He wants to dismiss the case. The defendants want the judge to dismiss the case. The system wants the judge to dismiss the case. The judge has a problem. You brought the matter to court because there is no lawful, legitimate constitutional governance existent in that state. Period. We can end it right there. Okay. And you can prove that by the actions of various government officers and law enforcement who are required to uphold the Constitution and the rights of the people. But these defendants went against the rights of the people and upheld the actions of unconstitutional officers. Okay. So the system wants the case gone. The judge is sitting in a position. If I dismiss this case based upon the evidence presented, okay, or which could be presented if the case were to continue, this is going to be appealed and I could be in a hot seat. I don't want this to happen to me. And I don't want to confirm the claim by the plaintiffs that there is no lawful, constitutional, legitimate government in the state. And if I dismiss their claim, I'm part of that problem. Therefore, I can be joined in that suit that is going to be appealed because of my decision. He doesn't want to do that. Number two, if he doesn't dismiss the case is going to go before the jury. If you know what you're doing, and if you can properly present your case and show by evidence, very important piece of, very important positions. Evidence is very important, facts are very important, truth is very important. You have to verify everything. If you can prove this, which you can by and through the affidavits, because of the admissions made in the affidavits by the people who never rebutted them, then the jury is going to understand exactly the position. And if the jury finds for the plaintiffs, holy hell will take place in that state. Holy hell. I don't want that to happen. What's his third position? His third position is to grant summary judgment to the plaintiffs. Believe it or not, that's the only legitimate position for the judge, if in fact you do your homework and you do it correctly. But in order to do this correctly, you have to know what you're doing, and you have to have pressure, and you have to have people behind you. And so far in America, we've only found one group, and that's a group in Ohio that is willing to go all the way. And we give them tremendous congratulations for that. Take over.
We have an editorial comment by the dog. He thinks he runs the household, he and one of our cats.
Stop.
We let them have the illusion. It's a lot easier than fighting with him every day. He means well, but he is an outspoken dog. Jack's given you a lot of nuts and bolts here. I want to make a couple of points, more than a couple, on the nuts and bolts before we wrap up, because it's sort of the theory behind the action, okay? First thing that people have to know is that we, the people, are the de jure government of these United States of America, the nation on the land. We, the people, are superior. We are sovereigns in our own right, and as a collective force, we are superior to any and all machineries of government at every level, including the feds. We, the people, not them. They work for us. We put them in place. We delegated a little bit of our authority to them to operate lawfully. That means pursuant to the constitutions, and to operate the governments in a manner that will best suit and serve the people in their best interest and welfare of the individuals as well as the collective cities, towns, and nations. We have this power and authority, and we have to use it. We haven't been using it to oversee and supervise our machineries of government, so they have run amok, and they basically have run away with the store. And they're leaving us high and dry because we have allowed it. We have to accept the responsibility. We messed up. Now we have to take a new path and go forward, recognizing our sovereignty, our abilities, and our authority to act in this manner. Wait a minute, my dog is patting. Yes, I love you too. I love you too. You might have to go.
He's a pest.
He is a pest. But I just made some points because I know I'll forget because he keeps interrupting me, Don. Anyway,
Let's go.
we have stressed this a million times, but I want to say it one more time. We, the people, have inherent rights that our constitutions recognize, affirm, guarantee, and secure. One of those rights is the right to redress our grievances to any form of government that is acting unlawfully, unconstitutionally, in a manner that's detrimental to the people. The First Amendment guarantees us this right, and the best way to exercise this right to redress grievances is by and through the affidavit of which Jack spoke. The affidavit is the best way to do this because it is a lawful document. It's an instrument of weight and power. And when it's brought to bear on a public officer who has acted unlawfully, it is accepted by a court if it has been unrebutted. It is accepted as fact and truth if it is unrebutted. So when people want to make a statement to government that's not going to get tossed into the circular file, they'd be well advised to make it a sworn notarized affidavit that they swear to under the pains and penalty of perjury. And if they are based in fact and truth and valid law, as Jack mentioned, then there's no way that their opponents can ever rebut in kind, because to do so would be perjury. Because if the affidavit's based in truth, fact, and valid law, the opponent certainly cannot be so based. If we have large numbers of people who individually write affidavits to their public officials, whether it's locally, at the state level, at the federal level, and I would do all of the above, informing them of their failures, of their unconstitutional actions by what they have allowed, whether they were actively and directly involved, or whether it was passive acceptance or allowance. That's a failure of their oaths. And we, the people, have a remedy in our Constitution. We have the authority to act in this way. We have the authority to exercise the remedy the Constitution provides. And that remedy is found in the self-executing sections 3 and 4 of the 14th Amendment. And I say self-executing because these sections are automatically active. They don't need to be given force and effect by and through a piece of legislation. They already have force and effect. And they simply say that any public officer who has taken an oath and then acts in a manner that purges that oath vacates his office upon the commission of that act, and he forfeits all benefits of that former office, including salary and pension, because he's no longer fit to accept and receive public funds. This is in the Constitution. It's our constitutional remedy for constitutional violations. People need to know about this, and they need to use it, and they need to demand action. Now, we speak of the founding documents from time to time. And of course, going way back to the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson's words are very, very poignant. And some of the things in that Declaration of Independence apply now. We have the duty to oppose all enemies of this republic, both foreign and domestic. We do have foreign enemies, yes, but the ones that are really undermining us are the domestic enemies. They are traitors to America. They are traitors to the Constitution and to the American people. They are the ones that are acting in insurrection against our Constitution and our lawful form of legitimate governance. These are the people that have to be removed. 3 and 4 of the 14th Amendment are the instruments by which they can be removed, and then they can be tried for the crimes that are cited in the people's affidavits. And there are numerous. They could probably have 50 charges if they wanted to. Once the people realize, okay, that they have the authority to do this, they can also realize that it's up to us to recognize when our governments become wrong, when they are abusing their authority, when they are misusing their authority, they're acting against the best interests of the people and they're violating their oaths. Because of that, it's our duty to remove them. And we have the option to alter, correct, or remove errant government. This is something that we need to do now. We need to recognize that what's operating and looking like government is not in fact government. It's in fact a corporate fraud that was perpetrated on us a long time ago. And our real government, our de jure, organic, constitutionally ordained government has been stuck on a shelf with nobody occupying the offices therein. So we have to kick out the pretenders, the posers, the imposters. We have to clean the house. We have to take back our government and all the resources of that organic government and put people into office who are constitutionally competent and compliant. And we can't take anything less than that. That's absolutely imperative. And remember, if we do this collectively as individuals acting in a united group of Americans who understand what's at stake here, and it's the country's future, our personal futures, the futures of our families, our children, our friends, all of us have to realize how grave this situation is and understand that the only people who can save us are we the people ourselves. So taking all of that into consideration, I would say that this is the do or die moment for the people of the United States of America. And if they don't stand up now and take the actions that are available to them lawfully, then we will lose our country and we will live to regret it for the large number of days that we have.
Now, one final position here on this matter. Would you take care of things?
Try.
Yeah,
He is in
recently there-
100% agreement with the two of you. I
yes,
love the wisdom
He
of the
is.
canine.
we would love to see this happen, but let me give you an example of how the people look at things. Okay. There have been demonstrations from time to time all over the country. Some, not a lot, some. There should be huge gatherings of people, millions of people gathering like they did in London, like they did in Paris, like they've done elsewhere. Only those people who had those demonstrations didn't take any lawful effective action against the government, okay? Demonstration is one thing. You know, you feel good about demonstrating. You feel good about speaking your mind. You feel good about being with a lot of other people. We don't feel like that, but demonstrators do. Now, what are the demonstrators going to do to solve the problems of which they're speaking? Zero. They're not doing anything in Europe. They're not doing anything here. A recent example, and I think it's probably still going on, Labor Day, it's probably still happening. In California, there was a demonstration of quite a few people, many thousands, 5,000 or 6,000 people, put together by firemen and policemen who wouldn't take the jab. Okay, they said, no, we're not going to do it. All right. All of these people are gathered together and they're all demonstrating and they're all talking and they're doing nothing to solve the problem. Now, some of our people were there who spoke with these police and who spoke with these firemen and tried to get them interested in the affidavit approach to protect their own rights, the rights of their family to be supplied through money, monetary means, buying through the job, okay? and no one was really interested. People hemmed and hawed about it. They said, yeah, maybe that could work. Maybe. No, we can't deal in maybes. We have to deal in effective action. Like I said earlier, if you're doing something and it's not effective, you're not doing the right thing. Deal in effective action. And the program that we laid out is based on the power and the authority of the Constitution. So if the people are really interested, the people are going to help themselves, and we'll see what will happen.
Well, what I see from what you're saying, Margie and Jack, is that without our action, without our participation, writing these affidavits and distributing them to the parties that are violating our sovereign rights, we tacitly move more quickly toward slavery, our
Yes.
own
Yes.
enslavement.
Yes, we're allowing.
Communism is an enslavement ideology. It is about taking away our rights, our freedom, our property, our access to live our sovereign birthrights, our God-given rights. And we've seen that in countries historically. We've seen that in Russia. We've seen that in China. We've seen the
Every country that's been infected with communism. It is a
Yes.
soulless ideology. It's soulless, and they want to take our soul. They want to take the connection between us and our spirit. That's what they want to do. And
And
if
so
we
it's-
stand by, let them, it's our fault.
And so as ignorant as we are in this country, we have definitely been that frog in the water, and the heat turned up, and now we are at a point of being boiled. And there are a few of us jumping out and saying, this is death. This is
Yes.
death to our freedom. This is death to our children's future. And so, folks, unless we awaken, unless we take this lawful action to write these affidavits and hold these corporate, communist, unlawful government officials to task for their unlawful actions, we will definitely further move into positions of slavery. And all we have to do is look at the last couple of years and look at the censorship and look at our ability to gather with family, to go to church, to be able to sing in church. In Scotland, the bagpipes were outlawed. We have people only being able to travel if they have succumbed to a totalitarian medical experiment that has been proven that it not only causes death, but it causes irreparable illness and ultimately horrific crippling. That is not freedom, folks. So step up. Thank you, Jack and Margy. I will put your links below in this presentation. And do you have any closing comments to make before we say goodbye and thank you and move on to our next series, next part in a few weeks?
Just one closing comment. One of our students sent us a clip of David Martin. You've heard of David Martin.
Yes.
Very good. He's a lawyer. We followed him for a long time. The fellow knows what he's talking about. He's very direct. He's very much to the point. He's very much based on the law. Anyway, in this presentation that he made, and I'm not sure where it was, we saw it yesterday. We watched 15 minutes of it. He said, "This is my last presentation on these lines. I'm not going to speak like this anymore. I go to presentations with a lot of other doctors, a lot of other lawyers, a lot of other people. We all get up, we all make, I'm paraphrasing, we all get up, we all make our statements, we all speak about our issues, and the people in the audience clap, and the people watching on the home screen, TV, DVD, whatever, they say, oh, that was great, that was absolutely wonderful. Then they go home, and they watch the football game or the baseball game, or they have a few beers and they forget it. That doesn't do anything. That's all talk. Now, he didn't say that, I'm saying. He said nothing is accomplished with that. People recognize the issues, they recognize the talk about the issues, but they do nothing about it. He said, I'm not going to do that anymore. Now is the time for action. Next time you see me, I'm going to be involved in action. Because now the government is trying to kill our children. And that is not another issue. That is murder. I am not supporting that any longer, and I'm not supporting what I've done all this time. I'm going on a different venue. Action is the only thing that works. And we only deal in lawful effective action. We don't deal in any other type of action. And we have plenty of ammunition within the Constitution to deal in lawful effective action. For instance, what if these 5,000 firemen and police who were fired or who left because they wouldn't get the job, what if they said, yeah, we're going to do the Constitution affidavit, the constitutional affidavit, and we're going to take action against the governor, and we're going to take action against the entire government that opposed our rights. They're not going to rebut anything we say. We're going to remove them through the court system, and we're going to hold the court system to the constitutional positions pursuant to Article 6 that demands the judge uphold the Constitution over any other form of lesser law, especially the law that acts in opposition to the Constitution. What if they all did that? And what if other demonstrators in other areas did that? We could make amazing bounds forward. So it's up to you folks, as it's always been up to you.
One last point for me.
Yes, please, Marty.
David Martin for just a second. Something else that he said is profoundly
Yes,
true. It's something
yes.
we thought for a long time. He said, we haven't seen the real America yet. America has not been realized because she has been strangled by these usurpers and interlopers. So let's show up, people. Let's be true Americans, and let's make America truly great by showing who the real America is, by her people being free, independent, sovereign, just, ethical, honest, with integrity, and standing up against the evil that is threatening to devour all of us. And let's do it now.
Thank you very much. And yes, the bottom line here is our children, because if we cannot stand and protect our children, who are we? Who are we in terms of where did we come from? How did we get here? Through our ancestors who stood up for us. And if we cannot stand up for our children, then we have failed not only our children, but ourselves. And we are not people who are people of failure. We are people of ethics. We are people of high morality. And that is what has been under attack. So folks, gather together, contact Jack and Margy, contact me. Let us stand together and write those affidavits of truth and pour those in to those unlawful government administrators who are acting unlawfully in this country. Thank you, Jack and Margy. It was a real pleasure. Until next time.
Thank you, Catherine. The pleasure is ours. Be well.
Thank you.